So, welcome everyone. Good evening. Be'ezrat Hashem, today we're going to start an interesting class. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be able to explore a bit of ideas about. In the first place, we're coming in every day to shul, and we're trying to go ahead and dive into Hashem. We're trying to go ahead and make the most out of a community, and we're trying to really grow as individuals. Each one has their own things that they're requesting and their own things that they're asking for their life, if it's health, if it's family, if it's shalom bayit, if it's whatever it may be. And we're trying today to explore a bit what and each paragraph within the Siddur, within what we say every single day, 3 times a day, what it really means. And we're going to go from just understanding what the Siddur says to halachot, to the Chafetz Chaim, which speaks a bit about what's the power of our speech. And then we're going to touch a bit today specifically on ideas from the weekly portion. And hopefully we'll make some benefit out of it. We'll dedicate the learning, as we always do, to the hostages, may they return home safely, to the idea of soldiers, to Idan ben Chaim, Eyal ben David, also Yaakov ben Yosef, and Dina bat Yaakov, may their neshama have an aliyah. And we should see revealed miracles, Bezrat Hashem, and Mashiach coming in soon today. So first of all, we're trying to understand what is tefillah. So we have something that we actually saw in the last week's parsha. We had a discussion a bit about it on the Shabbat, and we try to look at it. What's going on here why we call it Jewish? So Jewish in the Hebrew word is called Yehudi, and if we look at Yehudi, what it really means comes from the root of Yehuda, right? It doesn't come. We see the story about Yosef HaTzadik, and we see Yaakov Avinu, and we see a progression about how the Jewish nation used to be called. So if we look at back earlier in the days when Avraham Avinu was alive, then he would go ahead and he would choose a different direction from what everyone else chose. So you would have, everyone that would follow different gods, and he would only be the only one who would follow monotheism. He said, no, that doesn't make sense. For me, there's only one God that's primal, that has been existing here before everyone, that's infinite when everyone else is finite. And went ahead and decided, I'm going to go against everyone who will be in the other, it says, ha'ever hasheni, in the other side. And because it's called the other side, he was called Avraham HaIvri. So Avraham HaIvri was the first name that the Hebrews were called, so to speak. And then came in, fast forward to Yaakov Avinu. And Yaakov Avinu went ahead and fought with the angel. And he survived, and he was able to go ahead and stay and last with him. And then God is given the name Yashar El, or Israel. Basically, honest and straight with God, and was able to go ahead and face God and still survive, face the angels and still survive. So then we were called Bnei Israel, which we're still called until this day. But then comes in Yosef. And Yosef comes in, and we know about him that he was Yosef the Tzaddik. Yosef the Tzaddik, he was a holy person. He was someone that faced tremendous challenges, and he kept prevailing again and again and again. He was becoming a slave. He went into a pit of scorpions and snakes. It says, Bor Maim En Bo, there was no water in the pit, but what it was, Rashi says, there were scorpions and snakes, and he survived. And then he went ahead and was being sold to Egypt. He became a slave there. Then he slowly grew up in his progression. Then he became pretty much the second strongest man in Egypt. He was able to go ahead and overcome the challenge of the wife of Potiphar, and it was called Yosef HaTzadik because he was on such a high level spiritually. And then we see that this whole story with Yehuda happening, that Yehuda is the one who sold him as a slave before. And ultimately, the one who sold him as a slave is the one that we're actually being named after. Yehuda, and we're Yehudim. The kingdom of the Jews was called Mamlechet Yehuda, the kingdom of Yehuda. And when we're seeing the progression that he made there, so Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has a book that speaks about the weekly parsha, and he goes ahead and he shares a wonderful idea about the fact that this whole progression comes to Yehuda, comes to show us that Yehuda is introducing to us a topic that was not heard of before up until that point in the Torah, which is the idea of tshuva. How come? So he comes in, and in the beginning he goes ahead and he's doing everything he does to sell Yosef, and then comes in the I think two weeks ago or so was the parsha when we meet Tamar, right? And Tamar was married to his son, and she had no kids, and she the first son died, and he married her to his second son, which also died, and also she didn't have kids from him. So she came and asked to go ahead and marry the third son, and Yehuda tried to go ahead and steer away from it, and did not agree to it to happen. What did she do? She dressed up as a prostitute. She went ahead and seduced Yehuda, and she went ahead and stole 3 items from him: his clothes, his staff, and his signature ring. What is that?
She asked them as a bounty,
She as a bounty, so not speak, so to speak, and and then, so to speak, you fast forward a bit forward, and he finds out that she's pregnant. So he thought, she went ahead and did something inappropriate with someone else. So he says, he decrees that she needs to die. A Jewish halacha comes in and tells us that. And then she comes in and she gives him, in hidden, she gives him back the items. And she doesn't say it publicly. She doesn't go ahead and speaks about it in front of everyone to embarrass him. But she does it hidden, and then he comes in and he says something in the Torah for the first time. Tzadkai mimeni. She is more righteous than me. And what he comes in and basically is doing is admitting, I made a mistake, and there's something for me here to do in order to repent for my behavior. And then we move on to last week's parsha, and we see again comes in Yosef, and he's trying to keep Binyamin as a hostage. So he comes in and tries to keep him with him, and basically what Yehuda is saying, there's no way that I'm letting him stay here without taking him back to my dad, because my dad is going to get a heart attack or something, or my dad will not survive something like that. So he comes in and basically is offering to sacrifice himself in place of his brother. And then Yosef sees that he really went through a full transformation, and that's really where we start seeing Yehuda becoming a leader, becoming someone who's living up to the potential from a very low place to a very high place. So that's the idea about us being Jewish. So then we understand that being Jewish comes in and has 2 portions to it. Yehudi comes in from the root of Hodaya, but also comes in from the root of Hoda'ah. So there's 2 things there. Hoda'ah is to coming in and saying, I made a mistake. I messed up. I could have done better. There's something here for me to learn. There's something for me to grow from. And Hodaya is the root to come in and say thank you. So a Jewish person, first of all, has to understand that I need to develop 2 different lanes in my life. One of them would be to always be in gratitude. There's a lot of Torah classes that speaks about the attitude of gratitude, right? To come in and complain less, say thank you more. And we see it, we learned about it in the duties of the heart, for example. Comes in and speaks about all the wonders that we see that happen in this world. You go out in the streets, you see the way that the trees grow, you see the way that the sun rises and sets, you see the way that nature works and follows. And you start thinking to yourself that really it doesn't make sense that it's all random. It doesn't make sense that it's all here just for no reason, and you understand there's a purpose here. So if we're Jews and we understand a bit more that we're selected to be here, then we really need to go ahead and take it a step further. So if we're selected to be here and if we're serving a certain purpose, then we need to also go ahead and start living according to what God is commanding us. And we received here basically a workbook that we can take, which is the Siddur, which is the Torah that we're learning, and we can start growing up step by step. So comes in and also talks to us about the idea of Sulam Tefillah. So what is the Sulam Tefillah? Anyone here knows?
ladder of prayer.
The ladder of prayer. So he comes in and speaks about the Sulam that who saw in his dream? Yaakov saw a Sulam, a ladder that was placed on earth, and he went all the way to the sky. And what was the idea there? He comes in and tells us that the same way that dream came into to be in Yaakov's life, we need to go and also develop ourselves to live our life in a way that we climb in the ladder on a constant basis. And you see it in very classic examples. You see stocks and the way that the financial market goes. You see the market goes up, goes down, but always is going to be in an upward trajectory, at least if you see the last 100 years or so. And you've seen every time in life, a lot of times we see things that are struggles in our life, that are difficulties. Someone has chas v'shalom health issues. Someone has maybe financial issues. Someone is losing a job. But then ultimately, a lot of times we'll see that we find a better opportunity afterwards. We lost a job, we find something better. We have had a health issue, and Baruch Hashem, we're able to reveal something that was a far worse issue than we ever expected. And when we start seeing these occurrences happen in our life, we start to see a bigger picture. And he comes in and he tells us here that there's really, if we look at the choreography of the prayer, it works in 3 steps, in 3 strides that we take in the beginning. In the beginning, where do we go? When we step into the Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei. So we step back, we prepare ourselves, so to speak. That's the way we start at Tefillah also. We go with Psukkah de Zimra, we start with all the Modeh, we start to kind of prepare ourselves to start praying. And then we go ahead and we take 3 steps forward, and we enter something called Tfilat Shmoneh, which is 18 different paragraphs and 18 different asks that we have. Some of them is gratitude, some of them is asking things that are more specific, and then we go ahead and we end up by taking 3 steps back and slowly, gradually going down in the Kedusha. And we're going to explain about it more in a second, but the idea is that we have 3 steps there, and these 3 steps, they're called, let's see how he says it here. So the 3 steps we'll touch upon in a second. Before we continue with that, we want to also understand, I think it's really important. We go into prayer and we do it sometimes on automatic. And I teach in Eula, and I see a lot of kids that go ahead and come to prayer and they just do it on automatic. Okay, let me just pray because my dad told me so, my grandfather told me so, and I just saw it as my lineage. I'm Jewish, so I'm supposed to be doing it. I don't think it's enough. I became about tshuva, and for me, when I saw it, I got rashes on my body. I was really not accepting that idea. But what I did accept was when someone started to explain to me the deep meaning of it. When someone started to speak to my rationale, someone started to explain to me what each step actually means, and that made me much more connected to every single thing. And when we go ahead and we try to understand more, when we get this idea of that, of consciousness, of why we do every single aspect of tefillah, then we can really go into it with some sort of motivation. If we see, I think we all see it in here, Rabbi Horowitz, when he gets to prayer, everything takes longer. And you see this sense of calmness. You go to, for example, to Israel, to the Kotel. You have Rav Ades. I don't know if you know him. He's all the way in the corner in the Kotel on the Western Wall, and he goes ahead and cries there for maybe 3 hours of or 3.5 hours of shachrit, only shachrit. So then you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, there's something there. So who really can go ahead and get the benefit of the prayer? That's the first question I think we should ask. The answer is every single one of us. And you can see it with someone who's Jewish, with someone who's non-Jewish, with someone who's Orthodox, with someone who's not Orthodox. You see all the time these blessings come in and they can transpire in their lives. And what does God do here? There's a few options. Some of them, one of them is, first of all, maybe that person has a merit because of his grandfather, because of his dad did some sort of chesed, maybe because he has an ancestry that goes far back. So maybe he can go ahead and get something that's called zchut avot. Zchut avot is a merit that he gets because of his forefathers. The second option might be that maybe he's a Rasha, maybe someone who's wicked in this world, but Hashem comes in and says, you know what, I'm going to repay him now in this world, so that way he doesn't need to get any type of reward in the Olam Haba, in the next world. So when he goes ahead and he does that, he basically is pushing him away. He says, here, take a few dollars for now and leave me alone, don't come back to me again. By doing that, he's really basically exempting us in the next world from being having to deal with the Rashaim and the wicked. So comes in and talks to us about what are we actually coming to do. Who can go? So one of the examples that I saw, I think it was maybe 3-4 months ago. There was a woman named Moran Stella Yanai. She was a girl that was kidnapped into Gaza, and I had the blessing to work with her on some projects. And she shared with us the story that she had. And she shared, when you speak with her, she's a girl who worked in one of like the jewelry booths up in that music festival. And she shares so many stories about faith, about belief, about how God was with her throughout the journey. And one of the things that she told us there was really, really connected to prayer, actually, was the fact that when she went into Gaza, she was there locked in several homes, and she moved from one place to the other. And at what point she went with Noah Argamani. I don't know if you saw the videos. She was on a motorcycle screaming for someone to help her. And ultimately, she was released also. And Moran Stella was there in a situation, one situation that she shared was she was at a time that the IDF, shut down all the water supply to Gaza. There was a period of time that they didn't give any running water to Gaza. And think about it, you were a hostage there, you don't have clean water. What do you get? You get dirty water. So they gave her the dirty water. She started getting really ill, and then they would go ahead and try to feed her. They would barely feed them one pita bread a day, but They would try to feed her, and every time she would go ahead and throw up. And she became really weak up to a point that she started passing out, blanking in and out, and she thought, I'm not going to survive it. And she started envisioning in her head Shabbat meal at her house, doing kiddush with her family, and being able to go ahead and live in that realm for a second. It didn't help enough, but then she went ahead and the terrorist saw that she was about to pass out. So she said that he started tweaking the radio and tried to find something in Hebrew. And he found a song by an artist, her name is Sarit Haddad. And Sarit Haddad is like an old school artist in Israel, and she started singing a song called Shema Yisrael Elokai. And when she started hearing this song, she basically revived herself back into the situation. And she ended up being released after 54 days. The second thing that to me is a bit even more unique than that, or as unique, she prayed every single day, and in her prayer, she basically imagined Noah Argamani, she was with her in a portion of the time they're there. So she basically prayed and envisioned her going home in her head again and again, every single day, a few times a day. And after I think it was about 246 days, no, Gamani was released. I don't know if you've seen the operation. She was rescued in that operation with the four individuals that was rescued. So you see that and you say to yourself, how much power there is to pray. And you see another example. You look at our matriarchs, right? You see Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. You see how they prayed and how they went ahead, and they started by being how do you call it, akara? They cannot give birth. Barren. They cannot give birth. And God has created it, and you ask yourself why. They're supposed to be the most holy women that the first generations had. They're supposed to go ahead and establish all the Jewish existence in this world. And all of a sudden, you see them cannot have any babies. And they go ahead and what God is explaining to us. And there's a Gemara in Brachot that comes in and tells us, I want to quote it to you exactly. Uh, 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 uh. So, um, let's see. Mm. That's about the tzaddikim, but also here it comes in and says in Midrash Rabbah, our sages tell us, למה נתקעו האימהות? Why was the mothers barren? שהקדוש ברוך הוא מתהווה לתפילתן. That God is desiring their prayer. So if we understand how much God wants our prayers, because at the end of the day, we're created as we said, Yehudim, to come in and say gratitude and to come in and create a connection with God. Then by doing that, we're able to really go ahead and uplift all of our existence. And by that, you see that things were changed from being banned to going ahead and eventually going ahead and creating the Jewish nation. Think about how amazing it is. How it's a small miracle, and we see the smallest miracles in the world on a daily basis happening. So if the way that we plant a seed with one tomato seed and it grows to 100 tomatoes, if that's not a miracle, or if the sun sets from one side and rises on one side and sets on the other side, that's not a miracle. Or if you're living and functioning and being able to breathe and walk, is that not a miracle? Then the examples can continue on and on and on and on until a person says at some point, you know what, there's miracles here. Let me start understanding this and let me start understanding what I'm doing. So now let's try to touch the idea of what are the types of values, or what are the types of benefits that we have in order to go ahead and speak properly. So when we speak properly, we're going to touch it in a second also in the Siddur itself. We basically are going ahead and we're trying to channel ourselves and trying to put ourselves in the right position to get the blessings. So if we look at it, or if we think it in a certain sense, let's think about now I'm taking a jug of water and I have this small filter system that if I connect it properly, I can go ahead and pour the water and it goes into the cup. But what happens if the cup is halfway tilted? Or what happens if the pouring system or the filter is not exactly aligned with what I need? Or what happens? Mostly, the jug is going to be the same, right? The water that comes in, or the spiritual energy that comes in from God, this is something that is consistently trying to come to this world. We see it in different instances. Every Shabbat we have an opportunity to go and get more of the Kedusha. Every holiday we have a chance to get more of the Kedusha. Yom Kippur, a lot of the different holidays and instances, Rosh Chodesh. And we can go ahead and either take and draw that energy to our life, or we can go ahead and pass on it and miss out on the opportunity. So the Chafetz Chaim comes in as a part of what we want to learn is we want to include some of Chafetz Chaim, what he speaks about how we keep our tongue and mouth, some halachot that we can go ahead and understand what it really means to do, some deeper explanations to the halachot, which is from Rabbi Natan, which is the Talmud of Rabbi Nachman, which is some Hasidus, and the siddur that we're going to use is we'll use the regular siddur that we read from, but I'm going to use the one with the intentions of the Arizal, which comes in and tells us a bit about the deeper depths of what we pray. So he comes in and tells us here that ספר זה איננו ספר המדבר על הלשון בלבד. זהו ספר העוסק במידות האדם ודבר היותו יציר כפיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. This book that we're reading about is not just about what I say from my mouth. It's to understand, first of all, that I'm a createe of God the Almighty. And then he comes in and tells us that דיני התורה בכל הקשור לדיבור, all the judgments that we have about speech, they're included with the essence of שמירת הלשון, of keeping our guard in our mouth and being able to utilize for the right purpose. And he says that when we look at תוצאות דיבורנו, when we look at the results of our speech, אנו נוכחים לדעת שהם אלו יותר מכל תכונה אנושית אחרת המגדירים את אישיותנו. We see that more than anything, our speech is really defining what our character is, who we are as human beings. So there's a whole discussion, we'll probably hopefully touch it in next classes, but about what each one of our sfirot, what each one of our countings is representing. And what speech represents is, first of all, an opportunity to go ahead and say thank you to God and go ahead and grow ourselves and our characteristics. But on the other hand, it can be a representation of our arrogancy in this world. So usually, if you think about it, how does a person look arrogant to you? Not by what he drives or what he does or maybe the house he has, but usually because of what he says. When a person speaks in a certain way, you can say, oh, this person is arrogant. And on the contrary, when a person is speaking properly, then you can go ahead, wow, this person has really refined himself. If he can control himself, he can improve his midot, he can improve his values and traits, then we can really get the benefits of it. Questions so far before we continue? No? Okay. So,
Yeah, I have a comment
of course,
about, you were mentioning the rabbi that spends 3.5 hours davening,
Rabbi Adams.
right? But a lot of us don't have the luxury of davening slowly.
Mhm.
We have to daven at a certain pace so that we could, get out and do what we need to do during the day.
100%.
So can you still derive the benefit by davening faster rather than slower?
So the short answer is absolutely. And what we can do if we don't have the time to go ahead and get into the depths and the kavanot and the intentions, which God willing, we should all be zocha to get into to our opportunity to do that. But if we're limited in time, and we all, I think most of us, if not all of us in this room, are people who are working, are people who are supporting a family, who have grandchildren, kids, wives, and whatnot, and we all need to have certain responsibilities, and we cannot just sit and pray all day. That's just the reality of life. So if we cannot do that, what we could at least do is by the time we're here, to make sure that we get the most quality out of our prayer. And if we can get that, then we're successful. If I can go ahead and I can use every single word that comes out of my mouth and understand what I'm saying, and more than understand what I'm saying, also be able to go ahead and elevate not just myself, but elevate the community, then I'm really raising everything that's happening here to a higher degree. And then even if you don't have the time necessarily, or I don't have the time necessarily to pray for the length of time that it takes for me to properly get into intentions and everything, because my friends are also elevating their prayer, then you get more merits because of them. And comes in, and when we say that tefillah, the idea, I like gave this example on Shabbat, but the best example I think is if you look at let's say now I'm going now to the park and I'm going to play a team of adults in the park. I could either a basketball game. I could either go ahead and take a group of teenagers and I can go ahead and have them come and join me to the court, or I can rally a group of NBA players and jump onto the same court. What are you going to prefer? I think that I would prefer the NBA players. So the same goes lehavdil, of course, but the same goes with our prayer. If we can assemble within us, within the community, a group of NBA players or a group of Jews who know what they're saying, who know why they're saying what they're saying, who know what type of energy they can actually unleash within the prayer, Then we coming in almost as a superstar NBA team coming in and really absorbing a lot of kedusha, a lot of blessings into our own lives. And what you will be doing in prayer, and what you will be doing in prayer, what I will be doing in prayer, it will all connect to draw more light. And I think we're fortunate enough to be in a place that we're the intention is there, the silence is there, the kedusha of the place is there. Now we can go ahead and try to raise our level as well. And now he goes ahead and continues. If we're looking at the Shmirat HaLashon, is trying to tell us is what is the goal? What is the goal of us refining our speech? So Chafetz Chaim writes that when a person guards the halachot of Shmirat HaLashon, he, by definition, is becoming a better person. By going ahead and being able to challenge yourself to constantly pay attention to what comes out of your mouth, you're by default is becoming a better person. So this, why is it? Who can assume? Who has a guess? Why is it? Why is it that when I keep my mouth and my speech, I'm becoming a better person?
Control yourself.
Self-control. So the idea is once I start developing self-control in speech, I can develop it with eating, I can develop it with sleeping, I can develop it with watching my eyes, I can develop it with every aspect of life. When I develop this muscle of being able to go ahead and discipline myself and resist the urge that I have, resist desires, I'm becoming a better human being. And the classic example is a person goes to the gym, he goes ahead and tries to pump the weights. In the beginning, it's difficult, it's horrible, I cannot pick it up, let me just go home. Mom, I need a hug, I cannot do it anymore. And then after a week, after 2 weeks, all of a sudden you start to raise the weights. Because otherwise you're gonna either go backwards or stay in flat. And your coach is, the more you get better, your coach is gonna keep adding the weights. But that means that you're getting stronger. That means that you're progressing. Means you're becoming healthier. And that's really what we're trying to do here. And then what we're trying to see here is that he finishes up, just to conclude this idea, גם כלל ישראל בדומה לקטורת בא לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא בשלמותו על כלל מרכיביו. The Jewish nation and us as a community, as a microcosmos of it, for example, each one of us is representing something else. One might be an attorney, one might be a basketball player, one might be a rabbi, one might be working in accounting, etc., 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 etc. Each one of us is bringing one thing that is different to the table. And if we see it, that we'll talk about it when we get there. But for example, Pitom Aktoret. Pitom Aktoret is a big blessing that it really has segula for protection and for a lot of blessings that come into our life, but it includes different types of herbs and different types of, of, um, of plants that each one of them serves a different purpose. And one of them might have a stronger sense or a stronger smell. One of them has taste. One of them has nothing. And one of them actually is detrimental to the whole mix. So what are we supposed to do in this case? We still include them there. And that's really the intention for us to understand. So now that we finished with a bit of the introduction, now we want to touch a bit on halachot, what it means and what it means to start a day properly. And I think it starts with the way we wake up, and it starts with the way we start to serve God in one thing, and then it goes and carries over to the tefillah we have. And today we're going to touch only in the basic of basic. Um, how much more we should go? What do you think? I was thinking up to 40 minutes, no more than that. Make sense? Yeah? So we're coming in with the first halacha that we have in the day. התגבר כארי לעמוד בבוקר, עבודת בוראו, שיהיה מעורר השחר. A person have to first of all wake up in the morning like a lion to be able to rise up and awaken the dawn. What does it mean? We see that in the dawn, usually when we wake up before the dawn comes in, that's usually the darkest point of the day. And when we go ahead and we wake up at that point, like a lion with the energy and the feistiness, that's something that really emulates in this world, something that's called להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. To come in the morning, it's very easy. I wake up when the sun wakes me up. I get the sun in my face. I say, it's so nice. I'm saturated from sleep. Now I can go, and it's easy for me to say thank you. But God is asking us here in this first halakha to come in and wake up before the sun and being able to go ahead and find a positive in the most dark moment in the day. And when we're able to do that, then we're able to light up the whole day as well. So it comes in, and the Rama comes in, and this is Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch, by the way, is coming in and speaking, first of all, with the bolded letters, he speaks about the Sephardi minhag, and then we get into the non-bolded that speaks about the Rama, and he explains the Ashkenazi way to look at things. הנה על כל פנים לא יאחר זמן התפילה ציבור מתפללים. He says, don't come late to the time that the public is praying. הגש שביתי השם לנגדי תמיד, הוא כלל גדול בתורה ובמעלות הצדיקים אשר הולכים לפני אלוהים. There's a big rule in the Torah that comes in and says, שביתי השם לנגדי תמיד. When we go ahead and we're late here and we're late there and we cut a corner here and we cut a corner there, in a way we're deceiving ourselves. We're saying God is only looking when I get into the synagogue. God is only looking when I'm in the middle of my Shmona Esrei. God is only looking when I'm in now with my family. And on and on, and you can give yourself these examples. But what we really understand, what we really should understand,